Thank you, Andrew. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunch and Learn opportunity to hear about the proposed minor site plan amendments for the streetscape improvements at the village of Shirlington. My name is Cedric Sutherland from the Arlington County Planning Division, and I'm the lead staff reviewer for this project. With me, I also have Sergio Vercochia, who's working on the DES side, and will be able to provide comments related to transportation and other DES related matters. The purpose of this meeting is to provide a forum for the community to get a better understanding of the applications and how the applicant proposed to improve the streetscape within the development. Additionally, the opportunity for the community to provide any feedback or share concerns that they may have. I would like to thank everyone for attending. Um, Before we begin, I would like to cover a few items to orient everyone to the virtual environment. Today's meeting is available to stream from the county's website via Microsoft Teams link. There's also a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use it. If you lose internet connectivity during today's meeting, please reconnect with us by phone. Please keep your video turned off and microphone muted until you are called on. These tools are located as icons on your toolbar. If you do not see this toolbar, try tapping or clicking on the center of your screen. It will pop up. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record. When called upon to speak, you must unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon. Staff does not have the ability to unmute you. If you are dialing in by phone, press *6 to unmute. When you're finished speaking, please mute your phone again. Lastly, this is a public forum, and today's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements. I would like to start off today's meeting by going over our agenda. Um, Um, we will have 5 to 10 minute presentation of staff overview of the project, followed by the applicant's presentation, and then hopefully a lot of minutes for discussion. The proposed streetscape will primarily take place along the block of Campbell Avenue within the village of Shirlington. The site has a general land use plan designation of low office apartment hotel and is zone CO 1.5. Furthermore, the area is subject to the special GLUB study completed in 2020, um, and as well as the Shirlington Design Book currently from 2000, which will be updated with these proposed streetscape improvements. Um, the site is subject to a phase development site plan 106, originally approved in 1976, with major amendments in 1982 and 2000. within the um, Within the phase development site plan, the proposed final site plans are part 1, 6, and 7 and 8. The proposed scope of work, the applicant is proposing physical changes to the street, improvements to the public space, and updates to the streetscape. These changes will result in narrow streets, crosswalk extensions, an improved median, less on-street parking, a refresh of the plaza in front of the library and theater. And finally, the streetscape will consist of preservation of existing trees, installing new trees, updated furnishings within the sidewalk area and plaza, new plantings, and a more defined and comprehensive outdoor seating area. Um, Here's a map highlighting the areas of work. Again, the mid block along the eastern portion of Campbell Avenue, with curb extensions at the intersection of Campbell Avenue and South Randolph Street, as well as updates to the public plaza area. Um, in terms of the public process and schedule, um, this amendment was initially proposed and submitted and accepted in October 2022. Um, After the initial review, there were some major issues identified regarding the Virginia statewide fire code and the inability of fire apparatus to traverse the streets within the village. So over the past couple of years, the applicant has worked to revise their plans, and that culminated with the resubmission in March of this year. In terms of the public engagement process, um, this is the first opportunity to lunch and learn today. Additionally, the Shirlington Civic Association will host a meeting on June 4th, where the applicant will also present the project, and staff will also be on hand to answer any questions and provide some context. And this finally will culminate with a public hearing by the county board at their June 14th meeting. Next, I'll like to turn it over to the applicant to provide a more detailed, comprehensive overview of their project.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to keep this brief because we've got a lot of material to cover, but Nick Cummings here with Walsh Colucci. I'm a land use attorney who's working on the project. Jeff Sharp from Federal Realty is here with me. He's going to speak to the project in greater detail, but just quickly at the highest level, we're proposing to make a significant investment in the community here to improve the streetscape and associated landscaping in an effort to refresh the entire retail experience. This is critical to keeping Shirlington competitive with other similar retail destinations in Northern Virginia. And as it stands, Jeff can tell you we're behind our peers. This upgrade and investment also advances many of the goals of the somewhat recent GLUB study for Shirlington as well. I'll note quickly, there's no new building here. This is just an upgrade to the public realm. We've submitted a minor site plan amendment and accompanying amendment to the phase development site plan. Our proposed amendments are all generally aimed towards just enabling these public realm upgrades that Jeff is going to outline. Cedric is correct. We're going to the county board on June 14. This is a minor amendment, so it won't be going to the planning commission, but like he said, we'll also be in front of the Civic Association before we know it. So with that, Jeff, why don't you go ahead and outline the project?
Great, thanks, Nick, and good afternoon, everyone. My name's Jeff Sharp. I'm a development lead with Federal Realty Investment Trust. If you haven't heard of us, we own local properties such as West Post, Bethesda Road, Pike and Rose. We do have a national footprint of about 26 million square feet of retail. We've been doing retail development and ownership for over 60 years. Shirlington is one of our favorite assets. With that, I'm going to share my screen. And forgive me, I'm not good at Teams, and sometimes it takes me a second. All right, here we go. And hopefully folks can see that. So by way of introduction, again, we've owned Shirlington since 1996. We primarily own the retail at Shirlington. We do own a little bit of office space as well at the corner of Quincy and Campbell, but there are obviously a number of other commercial owners on site as well, Monday Properties, Easterly, and UDR, to name a few. I do want to point out that Cedric was quite right. We've been working on this since 2022. We have met, although this is our first formal public meeting, we have met repeatedly with the Shirlington Civic Association, with Green Valley, with Fairlington. We've also had extensive engagement with the other stakeholders on site, including WETA, the library, Signature Theater, the condo, and the commercial owners. And we've met repeatedly with our tenants who run all the businesses at Shirlington, which everyone knows and loves. Going to the next slide. So just a quick summary of kind of what works in Shirlington and what doesn't from our perspective. Obviously, it's not really a project, it's a neighborhood. It's, we think of it as a piece of real estate. The community thinks of it as a neighborhood, which is entirely appropriate. One of the great things about the place. It's a beloved place for gathering, both, whether it's sitting down for a meal or just sitting next to the cherry trees in Library Plaza in the shade. The trees, everyone knows and loves the mature willow oaks that line Campbell Avenue. We're being very careful and working very closely with the county urban forester to ensure that our construction does no harm. Shirlington is obviously a great and beloved center for outdoor dining. Next slide. Great local partners, again, who we've had extensive engagement with. And we're sort of integrated into the kind of local open space network with the adjacent trail system, Jennedine Park, and so on. There are a few things that don't work very well at Shirlington. If anyone's been there recently, you know there's a lot of deferred maintenance. For example, the streetlights that are out there, which are required by the development conditions from the PDSP and the 2000 Shirlington Design Book, those aren't made anymore. They're 25 plus years old. So every time one rusts out and falls over, we have to have one custom made. That's an obvious reason for why we're doing the update here. But perhaps more importantly, because the outdoor dining is so successful at Shirlington, there's a bit of tension over the real estate of the sidewalk between the needs for the businesses for outdoor dining, the desire for comfortable pedestrian circulation. So that's a little bit of a challenge. Shirlington was planned in the 1980s in its current iteration. And some of the approach to the urban design of the property is a little bit old school, shall we say, in terms of the widths of the streets, the ease of traffic movements, which 40 years ago were all about moving traffic quickly and efficiently through a property. I think nowadays, from the urban design perspective, we're more focused on pedestrian safety and traffic calming. You'll see some of those elements as we talk about the scope in a minute. The fountain in Library Plaza, this is the black pebble fountain that blocks access to the front door of the library. I'm not sure I've come across anyone in our extensive meetings who's a fan of that fountain. It was installed as a proffered piece of public art, again, back in the aughts. We are proposing to decommission that fountain and to replace it with another piece of public art of equal value elsewhere on site. And then finally, the Library Plaza itself, it's cluttered, it's large and without definition. It looks dated, and so we'd like to update it. There isn't really sufficient common area seating for outdoor gatherings. We're certainly not the prettiest, shiniest property around, which presents challenges for us in terms of attracting the best tenants in the market. We talked a little bit about the deferred maintenance. It's not just the street lights, it's also the signage. We're about to be updating our comprehensive sign plan as a separate process. And then finally, the median, which runs down Campbell Avenue. The block between Randolph and Quincy includes both a fence and a hedge. From a retail planning perspective, that's kind of a mistake. Blocking pedestrian circulation across the street so the retail doesn't talk to each other is not a great move, so we'll be removing those as part of the improvements. This is just a quick rendered site plan, but starting on the eastern block of Campbell Avenue, again between Randolph and Quincy, we're proposing a couple improvements. The main thing to keep in mind for this block of Campbell today, the way the street is designed, starting at the building face, there's a sidewalk, then there's parallel parking on the street, then a drive aisle, more parallel parking against the median, and then the same thing over again. That parallel parking that's against the median is a little bit unusual and strange. I'm not sure if I've seen that condition anywhere else in the market, in the DMV. And as you heard me speak about earlier, there is a desire both from our tenants and from the community for more sidewalk space for outdoor dining and circulation and common area seating and landscaping and all those great things that we want to include and build upon at Shirlington. So big picture, one of the main things we're proposing, by eliminating the parallel parking next to the median, we're able to move the curbs next to the sidewalk into the street, narrowing the street and creating more real estate on the sidewalk for all those great things. That's the first move. The second, oops, sorry, let me go back. The second, and you can see in the center of this drawing, the rendering shows an area of almost like a plaza in the middle of the street. We're proposing to bring the elevation of the road up to sidewalk level and create what's called a tabletop, giving the feel more of a plaza than instead of a street. That still will be drivable. It still will allow vehicular traffic in both directions. But again, the intent is both from a placemaking perspective to make it feel like more of a plaza, and from a traffic calming perspective, because you ramp up quickly to that plaza and because the texture is perceivable through your vehicle's wheels, it has the effect of slowing traffic in the center of the block where the highest level of pedestrian activity and circulation takes place. There's an example of that at a property we own in San Jose, California called Santana Row. Similar condition, there's a median down the middle of the main street of the property, but we've raised the center of that street to create more of a plaza feeling, again, to prioritize the pedestrian over vehicular traffic. This is a rendering. It's not perfectly accurate to what's in the plan, but it's very close and really is intended to show the character of the space. Again, you can see we're building on some of the great characteristics of Shirlington as it exists today, the palette of lovely brick pavers, the the mature tree canopy, but we're also adding in additional landscaping and common area seating, probably not right in the middle of the median, but to the side where people can take advantage of it. This, we alluded to the challenge that we had with the fire marshal's office back in 2022 and 2023. This graphic represents the compromise that we came to with their office. Cedric was quite right. The Virginia statewide fire prevention code does indeed require that fire lanes be no less than 20 feet in width. The compromise that we struck is that 15 feet of that 20 feet will be in the roadway, and 5 feet will overlap with the sidewalk with a roll curb condition. So that sidewalk won't have any improvements right there. So that it's a fire lane available for use by fire apparatus, but for everyone else, the driving, the vehicles happen in that 15-foot travel lane. In addition to the work on Campbell Avenue, we recognize that for most people who come to Shirlington, they park in one of the perimeter parking decks or lots around the property, and then circulate up to Campbell Avenue through what we call the vias in a couple different locations. And so those vias, in a way, are sort of like the front door to the project for most people. This is just a quick drawing showing one of them where, as you arrive on Campbell Avenue, instead of just sort of coming into the street and not really having a moment or a place to sit, we're proposing common area seating, so that if, for example, you're expecting to meet a friend for dinner, you can arrive, you can sit down, you can check your text messages, see that they're running late, have a place to wait for a few minutes in the shade. Again, just having some areas for different kinds of seating for the public at Shirlington. We will be making improvements to those vias as part of this effort with, for example, graphics and murals and vines. One of our early ideas in consultation with the public art folks is to replace the fountain with perhaps a mural commissioned by the same artist who did the fountain. That might happen in one of these vias, for example. We're still working that out and expect to wrap that up during the next phase of permitting, which will happen the rest of the year. And I'll talk about timeline at the end of the presentation. North Court, this today is what it looks like. This is if you park in the surface lot that's off of Arlington Mill Drive on the north side of the property. This is the look and feel of your arrival moment when you arrive at Shirlington. It's obviously dated, needs some help. We're making a couple major moves. The first is to improve some of the planters around the trees so you can sit on them. They're not kind of spalled and falling apart. The fountain that today is up in the median on Campbell Avenue, that is non-functional. We're going to relocate it down to the plaza so that you can actually sit next to it. Right now, you can't really sit next to it because it's in the median of a street, and reactivate it. Library Plaza, so this is what it looks like today. One of the key programmatic things that drives the use of the plaza is that Signature Theater during a popular show can have 200 people on a Friday evening queued up at the will call window. So although some initial ideas included, ideas of landscaping and more softscape in the plaza, when we engaged with the theater, we developed a much better understanding of their needs for the use of the plaza. So it's very much, the design is still very much a hardscaped one, but with more common area seating and more definition. This is a rendering of the new space, showing some new site walls, the introduction of some additional stone and other materials, common area seating, some of which will be movable. We are being very careful about the beloved grove of cherry trees, ornamental Yoshino cherries at the north end of the plaza. There's actually one missing, so we're going to add that one back in because that's the right thing to do. And that's the appearance of that space. I do want to conclude with just a few notes that we're doing in parallel. I mentioned the comprehensive sign plan. We are we're about to submit for building permit for some other improvements that are not contingent upon the PDSP or minor site plan amendments to, for example, upgrade the facades facing North Court. We've already secured admin change approval to do that, so we're just doing the building permits now. From a timeline perspective, as Cedric pointed out, we're on the agenda for June 14th with the board. We'll then spend the rest of the year addressing our CEP, or civil permit, and our final landscape plan that will take us through the end of the year. And then we intend to start construction January 2nd of next year. The reason that data is so important is that we do not want to disrupt the 2026 outdoor dining season, which happens primarily in the summer. So the construction would happen between January and this time next year. We also can't do any work in the fall because of contracts, leases that we have with Harris Teeter and AMC. So the only time we can do the construction is in the spring, which is why we're in a little bit of a hurry to get to the board and then get through our permitting with the rest of the year. And with that, very much appreciate your time and attention. Happy to take any questions.
Oops. Yes, Jenny.
Hi.
Hi, it's Carolyn Hayes with Forestry and Natural Resource Commission. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Nope. I
Yes.
guess my
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay. Question about, you said there's going to be additional landscaping. Can you highlight some of that, where that's going to be?
Sure. And the simple answer, there's a slightly longer and more complicated answer, but I'll start by saying yes. And then let me pull up that slideshow again. So can folks see my screen, or do I need to reshare?
Reshare.
You would need to reshare.
Okay, here we go. All right, can you see that diagram?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so one of the key things, so we've done test pits to figure out how this block of Campbell Avenue was built back in the mid 80s. And the section through the sidewalk consists of, starting at the top, slightly unusual brick pavers, which are 1.25 inches thick, an asphalt setting bed, a 4-inch concrete slab. And then, do you know what I mean by structural soil? Does that mean anything to you?
It does to me. I don't know about
Yeah, okay. Well, for everyone else, one of the challenges with trees in an urban condition is that tree roots like oxygen and they like moisture. And when you build a city sidewalk, before you pour the concrete, the first thing you have to do is compact the subgrade to drive out all the oxygen so that it doesn't settle. Well, that's inimical to tree roots. Tree roots don't like that. One of the reasons why the trees on the east block of Campbell Avenue are so healthy is because it's called structural soil, was installed along the whole block below the sidewalks. And that sidewalk, or that soil is engineered so that it has gaps between the grains. So although it's compacted to support the sidewalk, it still has moisture and oxygen in the soil below grade. And so the mature tree roots are everywhere below the sidewalks. For that reason, based on the advice we've had from our arborist and also with feedback from the county urban forester, we are not in general planning in the existing sidewalk locations to cut holes in the sidewalk and try and install new plants, because that soil is already full of tree roots. And again, we're trying to preserve the existing trees. So the approach we're taking, and you can see these areas of landscape, this is for context in front of CVS, which is the corner of Randolph and Campbell. Most of the new landscaping will occur in very large overscale planters so that it's above the sidewalk. So again, we're introducing more landscaping, but we're not doing it in such a way that we're going to cut through the existing root zones of the existing trees. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you. And one other follow-up question, then. I know you're working with the urban forestry folks, and just curious, I feel like those tree roots really get beat up with all of the sidewalk dining and people stepping in all of that. So I assume there's some plan to try to mitigate some of that.
Do you mean in the existing tree pits and the openings?
Yes. Uh-huh.
We haven't got to that level of detail yet, but I am 110% confident that we will be dealing with that as we work through the CP and the FLP in the fall.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Of course.
But Jeff, also on that issue, we're expanding the amount of sidewalk, so there'll be more space for pedestrians to walk and not have to trample over the roots.
Thank you. That's quite right, Rodrigo.
All right, Jenny had her hand up.
Yes, it's Jenny Ferris. I'm with the Shirlington Civic Association, and I live in the village. just want to say I really love this plan, and it addresses a number of the things that we think are important to do, including updating. I'm also intrigued by the idea of using the flow fountain artist to do one of the public arts in another location. I personally love the mosaic there in that fountain, but the function in the water, all the stuff that's not good about it can definitely be gone. But the mosaic is lovely. So that's all.
Thank you. Are there any other questions and comments? Carolyn, did you raise your hand
Yes,
again?
sorry, I have one other question for you. The lighting over there is still that horrible blue lighting?
Yeah, the high color temp.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
presumably that will be addressed as well?
Yeah, we'll be relamping with a more appropriate, I can't remember if it's 3600, but a lower color temperature that has a warmer glow to it than the cold, harsh 5000 Kelvin bulbs that we have today.
Great, thank you.
Vernon?
Hi, is this coming through?
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering if you have information about the timeline for the project?
Yeah, so the board hearing is on June 14th. We'll then spend the rest of the year getting through the other permits that we need from Arlington County, the civil engineering plan and the final landscape plan that will take us through the end of the year. And then we would like to start construction January 2nd of 2026, because we need to be done with construction by the summer dining season next year. So that's wrapping up construction by essentially this time next year, Memorial Day next year.
Perfect. And is the presentation online?
We can certainly share it if it's not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is recorded, and I'll also see if Jeff or Nick can forward me a copy of their presentation, and we can post it online to the application webpage.
Sure.
Any other questions or concerns? Comments?
Did Vernon have his hand up?
He just spoke. I don't know if I can put it down.
I just put it down.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll give everybody a last chance if they want to have a statement or provide any comment. Going once, going twice. I think that will conclude this meeting. If you have any other questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to myself. My email is csutherland, and Sutherland with an O, SOUTHERLAND at arlingtonva.us, or you can reach me by phone. It's 703-228-3589. Nick or Jeff, you're welcome to provide your contact information as well if you would like.
Yeah, I'm happy to share my email address if anyone has additional questions. It's gsharpe, GSHARPE @federalrealty.com.
All right, thank you. And as well, in addition, we do have the materials posted on the county website for Shirlington for this project. So please feel free to look over that material as well. With that, this concludes this meeting. Thank you for joining, and have a great rest of the day and week.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Edric.